Today's program is sponsored by ALP Limited Valuation Services. Most owners don't know what their business or their equipment is really worth until a lender, buyer, or partner asks. That's where we come in. ALP Limited Valuation Services provides small business valuations and certified machinery and equipment appraisals you can rely on for decisions that matter. Learn more at businessandassetvalues.com.
From Halifax to St. John's, this is the Atlantic Canada Business Report, focusing on the week in business news from across the Atlantic region. The people, projects, and policies shaping business across our region. I'm Peter McCulley. The Atlantic Economic Panel has unveiled a comprehensive engagement strategy to connect with businesses, sectors, and communities across the region. Chaired by Don Mills, the 7-member private sector-led panel will conduct sessions in all 4 Atlantic provinces throughout January and February. Provincial engagement sessions have been held in Halifax, with sessions planned for Fredericton, January 27th through 28th, Charlottetown, February 12th through 13th, and St. John's on February 17th through 18th. The panel is also launching a business questionnaire developed with Chambers of Commerce region-wide to explore growth opportunities, investment climate challenges, policy priorities, and workforce development needs. The Atlantic Economic Panel will deliver a report and recommendations to the Government of Canada, expected by September. Ottawa will soon seek input from provincial premiers on a national electricity strategy, which could influence future provincial energy planning and its grid infrastructure decisions across Atlantic Canada. The initiative comes as provinces wrestle with affordability, reliability, and clean energy transition challenges. Industry observers say federal coordination could unlock investment opportunities in transmission, renewable generation, and cross-border power sales. Regional utilities and business groups are watching closely as energy costs increasingly affect competitiveness. The strategy's development represents a significant policy shift toward more integrated planning across jurisdictional boundaries. More than 200 lobster fishermen, processors, and buyers from both sides of the border convened in Moncton for the U.S.-Canada Lobster Town meeting last week. Canadian participants celebrated recent gains from the China trade deal that eliminated 25% tariffs on lobster. Since the agreement, prices for maritime lobster increased approximately 20%, providing significant relief to fishing communities. American fishermen expressed concerns about losing market share as Canada regains access to Chinese markets, while U.S. producers remain shut out. Atlantic Canada's emerging hydrogen exporters are welcoming new momentum following a major European investment initiative aimed at accelerating clean energy supply chains. Industry observers say the move strengthens confidence in Atlantic Canada as a future hydrogen exporter, particularly for Germany and other EU markets seeking long-term energy security. While final investment decisions remain pending, proponents argue international capital signals growing credibility for Atlantic Canada's hydrogen ambitions. TD Economics is forecasting a slower year ahead for housing markets across Atlantic Canada, with residential construction expected to remain muted in 2026. While population growth continues to support demand in parts of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island, high interest rates and labor shortages are weighing on new builds. The report notes housing investment will contribute less to overall economic growth compared to recent years. Municipal governments and developers are expected to focus on targeted infill and rental projects rather than large-scale suburban expansion. Small businesses in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick are reporting improved confidence for 2026, according to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. The organization's business barometer shows long-term confidence strengthened in both provinces. This optimism comes despite ongoing challenges, including insufficient demand, which more than half businesses cite as their top growth constraint. The uptick suggests maritime small businesses are approaching the new year with renewed hope. French renewable energy company Q Energy France signed a memorandum of understanding with Nova Scotia Community College and the Peer Research Hub in Halifax to help train workers for the emerging offshore wind sector. The commitment focuses on hand-on skills, safety certification, and marine operations, preparing Nova Scotians for potential large-scale offshore projects. Industry analysts note workforce readiness is a critical requirement for attracting investment as offshore wind planning accelerates. The partnership is positioned as a signal to developers that Nova Scotia can supply skilled labor locally rather than relying heavily on out-of-province workers. New retail trade data shows Nova Scotia posted stronger year-over-year sales growth than other Atlantic provinces late in 2025. Gains were led by automotive sales, clothing, and household goods, reflecting resilient consumer demand despite inflation concerns. Economists caution that momentum could soften in early 2026 as households adjust spending habits, but the data suggests Nova Scotia's retail sector remains a relative bright spot. Senior Nova Scotia health officials have delivered a blunt warning to MLAs that current healthcare spending levels are not sustainable. The comments come after an Auditor General report showed healthcare operating expenses in the province increased from $5.2 billion in 2020-21 to $7.7 billion in 2024-25. Nova Scotia's Premier Tim Houston announced the Skills Bridge initiative to help military veterans transition into construction careers. The program, unveiled at the Building Trades Advancement College in Beachville, provides veterans with pathways to obtain skilled trade certificates and connect with employment opportunities in the construction sector. Representatives highlighted that veterans' discipline, teamwork, and technical skills make them ideal candidates for trade positions. A tie vote at the Cape Breton Regional Municipality has ended negotiations with a developer over a proposed Sydney Harbour project. The deadlock decision reflects ongoing divisions within council over development priorities, waterfront planning, and private sector partnerships. Business advocates have expressed disappointment that the impasse could delay potential economic activity and investment in the harbour area. Municipal officials are now considering next steps while the developer assesses options following the failed vote. After this word, Prince Edward Island potato producers are grappling with irrigation challenges, and Cantera Minerals has announced high-grade gold intersections at its Wilding project in central Newfoundland.
This segment is brought to you by ALP Limited Valuation Services. If you own a small business, understanding the value of your company and the value of your equipment is essential. We provide independent small business valuations and certified machinery and equipment appraisals to support buying, selling, financing, and strategic planning. Get clarity and confidence at businessandassetvalues.com.
The Nova Scotia government is defending itself after Quebec, Alberta, and Ontario accused the Atlantic province of undermining Canada's fight against the United States over softwood lumber. Nova Scotia is urging the U.S. Department of Commerce to reject requests for greater detail on how it calculates timber harvesting fees. Nova Scotia is exempt from U.S. lumber duties, while other provinces face combined anti-dumping and countervailing duties. Lawyers for Nova Scotia said the province is cooperating as a good neighbor to an important trading partner. Lumber manufacturers in New Brunswick are sounding the alarm over escalating U.S. trade measures that have imposed combined anti-dumping and countervailing duties of up to 45% on softwood lumber exports. The New Brunswick Lumber Producers Association warned that such high tariffs threaten the long-term viability of sawmills and the broader forest value chain, which supports thousands of jobs and higher than average wages. Maritime Electric has applied for rate adjustments after reporting energy costs exceeded projections by $31 million, putting pressure on Prince Edward Island ratepayers. The utilities request comes as the province navigates challenges with electricity supply costs and grid reliability. The Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission will evaluate whether cost overruns warrant customer rate increases or should be absorbed through operational efficiencies. Prince Edward Island potato producers are grappling with irrigation challenges as deeper water wells become necessary to sustain crop yields. Industry representatives report that accessing adequate groundwater for irrigation has become increasingly difficult and expensive, requiring more sophisticated drilling and higher capital investments. Climate variability and changing precipitation patterns are intensifying water management concerns across the agricultural sector. Producers emphasize that reliable irrigation infrastructure is essential to maintaining PEI's position as a major potato supplier. Provincial officials and farm organizations are exploring support mechanisms to help producers manage rising irrigation costs. Prince Edward Island physicians are pushing back against workload expectations in the province's proposed physician services agreement. Medical professionals have raised concerns that workload provisions could affect work-life balance, recruitment, and retention across the healthcare system. The dispute reflects broader tensions between government efforts to improve healthcare access and physicians' concerns about sustainable practice conditions. Negotiations continue between the province and physician representatives. The outcome will have significant implications for Prince Edward Island's healthcare delivery capacity. Retail sales in Newfoundland and Labrador increased 4.6% during the first 10 months of 2025, more than double the provincial budget forecast, despite mounting government deficits and public debt concerns. The surge was driven partly by vehicle sales, with dealerships reporting significant year-over-year growth as consumers rushed to purchase before anticipated tariff impacts. Cantera Minerals has announced high-grade gold intersections at its Wilding project in central Newfoundland, boosting exploration optimism in the region. The drilling results include significant gold grades that could advance the project's development timeline and economic viability. Mining industry observers say positive drill results strengthen Newfoundland and Labrador's profile as an emerging gold exploration jurisdiction. The findings may attract additional exploration investment to the province's central belt, where multiple companies are advancing early-stage projects. Liberal Member of Parliament Tom Osborne met with Newfoundland and Labrador business leaders to discuss concerns about capacity and service issues with marine Atlantic ferry operations, underscoring transportation infrastructure's importance for regional commerce. Business representatives highlighted how ferry reliability, scheduling constraints, and freight capacity affect supply chains, tourism operations, and overall competitiveness. The discussions come as stakeholders call for service improvements and infrastructure investment to support growing trade volumes. The head of Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services is warning of a future long-term care capacity crunch that could have implications for labor markets and health service delivery costs. Officials say demographic pressures and aging population trends will intensify demand for long-term care beds and related services in coming years. The capacity challenge could affect business planning, workforce stability, and health-related economic burdens across the province. Healthcare administrators are calling for strategic planning and investment to prevent future bottlenecks. The warning underscores how healthcare infrastructure capacity increasingly shapes broader economic planning. The provincial government has announced new funding aimed at supporting Newfoundland and Labrador's creative industries, framing arts and culture as a contributor to economic growth and export activity. The funding supports production, market development, and job creation across music, film, and digital media sectors. Officials say creative industries play a growing role in tourism, downtown revitalization, and international branding for the province. Industry representatives welcomed the investment as a step toward building a sustainable, creative economy. That's the week in business news from the Atlantic Canada Business Report. I'm Peter McCulley. Join us next time for more on the people, projects, and policies shaping business across our region.